Okay, so we're going to start again from Perek Beis in Shar Gimel. We started Shar Gimel the other time, but that was before Pesach, so we had some weeks off, and so we're here to explain the meaning of the word Mokum in Divrei Chazal, right? Because the Memor Chazal that says when you mispalo, when you daven, make your tefillah rachamim v'tachanunim l'fnei hamokam. So why is it, when it comes to prayer specifically, the reference to Hashem as mokum, as the place, right? So he said that these are sensitive topics. He says, but there are multiple levels of understanding in any words of Chazal, right? So we're coming to explain what this word mokum means. I'm thinking now that that we mentioned this already a few times, right? That this sefer in some ways was written in response to Hasidus, right? At the time, that he was concerned with some of the ideologies. Again, we don't know exactly what was already happening back then in those times, because we don't feel the full controversy, because we're all Hasidish and they're all Litvaks a little bit, and we're all Hasidish a little bit, right? But there was an idea of, so the concept of Hashem's infinity or Hashem's omnipresence is complicated, right? It's complicated. Hashem is everywhere, right? Yet we, when we are sitting here in the shul, we know that this is a holier place, right? So is there more Hashem here than when you walk outside this place? Is there more Hashem here than outside the door of this place? That you can't say that, right? Because Hashem Echad, Hashem is one, right? So Hasidim were very into like this, that Hashem is everywhere, and you have all these stories where Baal Shem Tov would go to like the right to the most like like a place, to the bar where the drunkards would where the robbers would be hanging out, right? And he would go and he would daven with them and whatnot. All these stories, and and in other words, they again, I don't know the full scope of the issue, but they saw Hashem is everywhere, and so there are no these borders. There are you could, right? So again, we saw this idea in the first shar when he said you can't just daven whenever you want or however you want, or you can do mitzvahs whenever you want or however you want. There are specific guidelines, and we cannot, even though we see that this is going to make some connections and it's going to make some tikkunim and whatnot, and then the oilamais and whatever. We have to follow halacha. We have to follow the prescribed path, and we don't know what the true Ratzon of Hashem is, right? So this is going to be, I think, in a similar vein, where he's going to try to explain and I hope we can really appreciate this, but because he's going to get into really complicated stuff, and but I think he's coming to kind of the antidote to Chasidus, where where Hashem is and where Hashem is not, at least conceptually speaking. Okay? Anyways, that's just an introduction. Anyway, so let's see. Perek Beis. Perek Beis says, Amnam pnimius inyan mekoyma shel olam, right? The inner depth of the words of that Hashem is mekoyma shel olam. He is the place for the world. Hu inyan godol moed. It's really deep. Kimash kinu yisborach shmei mekoyma shel olam. This that they called him the place for the world. Ein aroich klal inyan mokam anoisik al chayfetz ha'oimid. It's not really comparable to any place that holds, right? That holds another object. She'atzmos hishavus v'kiyum hakli. So we mentioned this last time, that the existence of the kli itself, the vessel, yesh lo mitzias b'fnei atzma. It has its own independent existence. Va'amokam, and the place that it's resting upon, rak matzelos ha'isoshu lo tipol v'tishover. It's only protecting it from falling down and breaking. And so too life, v'kiyum aguf alidei neshama. He also mentioned in the previous chapter that Hashem is compared to the neshama. Hashem's relationship with the world is compared to the relationship to the neshama and the body. So once again, so haguf yesh lemetzius b'fnei atzmai, the guf, the body has existence independent. Vein misbatel, and it's not nullified mitziusoi from existence. Gam b'tzeis neshama memeno, even at the moment the neshama leaves the body. Good. Aval ha'olam is kulom, but however the worlds, all of them, kol ikar hishavus mitziusum kol rega, their existence, their very existence, every single moment, every single second, every single, I guess moment, hu rak mi'ito yizbarach shmo, is completely and totally from him, blessed be his name. Be'ilu hoya mesalik ritzoyno yizbarach m'lahavay. So if he would for a moment, kol rega, for a moment, withhold, right, the will to have them be, to bring them into being, they would cease to exist completely, right? So he continuously wills the world into existence. Okay. And in truth, a person cannot fully know, and not only person, and no creation, even the greatest and the loftiest of creations, can't fully and truly understand how that works out, right? We'll see why. Why can't we understand that? We'll see why can't, right? But we cannot understand how it is that Hashem brings the existence into existence, right? And we'll see why. But because we can't understand how all the worlds and everything that exists, hema be'etzem ayin, there truly are a nothing. Okay? But every second they are brought into this kind of like, let's call it fictitious existence. Right? Because again, I'm going to jump the gun a little bit, but he's going to, we're going to have a problem here, and we're not going to resolve this problem, but there's a paradox. There's a paradox. Because if God is one, right, and he's a total, complete oneness, where he has no, oneness means complete simplicity, it's total oneness, it's one thing, right? And so one thing cannot exist, meaning if we say the world is finite, so there was a world existing for a certain amount of years, right? A certain amount of time, and before that the world did not exist. If that's true, then that means God existed in one existence before he created the world, and God existed a different existence after he created the world. And that cannot be, because we're saying God is one. So how could we reconcile this thing?
That's only true within the concept of time.
It's true with any right? The word before this, but again, even before time, there was no time. There was God without time. Now there is God with time. In other words, any way you cut it, you're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
You're going to have a paradox. If God is completely a total oneness, then he cannot change to bring something into existence. Because that's okay. Now I figured now is a good time to create the world.
Yeah.
It doesn't. That means that's just
we
it's a
can't
change.
comprehend before and after.
Right. So again, that's gonna remain something that we won't fully understand, but that's going to be the basis of this whole kind of gate, this whole chapter. Okay. So Lezois is because of this bocharu, they chose lehim shilehu yisborach. They chose to use this parable, ulehasbir leoizen shemas bekerev chachamim, and to give like to a listening ear a way to appreciate this idea, betevas mokum, with their use of the word mokum, place. Okay, I'm going to just keep reading, even though there's a hagor here. So even though so decreed the wisdom of Hashem, to give existence to his world, in a way that any seichel will not be able to grasp in what way their existence stems from him. Is Baruch Shmoi Kol Rega, blessed be his name every moment. V'yuchali damas b'einei boser. So therefore, in the eyes of the flesh, they can imagine that the world has an independent existence by itself. So therefore, our sages, they wanted to enlighten us bihem shilam linyan mokum, to compare Hashem to the idea of a place. Just like the kli, the vessel that rests upon a place. Again, even though the kli has an independent existence, if the kli would not have a place, the love that it should rest upon, it would fall and break. In other words, it would not be able to have a normal existence. Cain, similarly, even though the world is recognizable and it's felt and it's sensible like an independent existence, who is Baruch Shmoi Hu Mekoymoi, since Hashem is the world's place, if there would be no place in Hashem's will to bring this world into existence, certainly we could imagine that the world would then cease to exist. Okay? So basically what he's saying is not really on the same level, but the idea of the Mokim is that Mokim, meaning Hashem allows for the world to exist and wills its existence constantly. Had the world, he would not will it to exist, the world would have no Mokim, would have no place, and therefore would not exist. Okay? This is what they said in Sefer Yetzirah, right? So Sefer Yetzirah is this one of these very ancient Kabbalistic works, right? It's like almost like a medrash. I guess you can call it like a medrash, but it's like a medrash that's a puzzle that we can't even understand. And there are various commentaries on this. So he brings the first Mishnah. No, it's not the first Mishnah. It's first Parak Mishnah Ches. So over there it says Eser Sphiros Blima, that there are 10 spheros blima. The word blima is a very difficult word to translate, but blima simply sounds like bli means without, ma means what? So without anything, meaning blima without substance. Okay. Right? So eser spheros blima, without substance, physical substance. Bloim picha, bloim means like muzzle your mouth, melidaber, from speaking, and your heart from contemplating. Okay, so you could see also that the word blima is related to the word bloim. Bloim means to muzzle, to close up your mouth. So Eser Spheros blima could also be translated as unspeakable spheres, meaning spheres that are impossible to really verbalize their essence. So that's why it says, "Bloim picha melidaber," muzzle your mouth from speaking, and your heart from thinking. But if your heart does run, shuv lamokim, return to the place. Shulakach ne'amar, because that's why it says, and it brings a pasuk in Yecheskel, rotzoi v'shov. They were running and returning. This pasuk is referring to the Chayos. These are the highest angels that they are. They rotzei v'shov. They run back and forth. Again, whatever that means. Okay, so that's the Mishnah in Sefer Yetzirah that describes the Esser Spheres. Again, it says Esser Spheres Blima, the 10 spheres that are substanceless. Muzzle your mouth from speaking and your heart from thinking, but if your heart does run, return to the place. So what does it say? Return to the place. That's what he wants to address. Omar lamokim daika. It says specifically to return to the place. Hainu shim yorutz machshevas leiv ha'odam. That if the heart of a person does run, hamuskol eich, to try to contemplate eich nimshach his havusam kol rega mimenu, to really understand how the spheres emanate every second from him, from Hashem. That's impossible. You won't be able to understand. You're going beyond kind of your your real ability to comprehend. So therefore, shuv lamokim, return to the place. What does that mean? Return lehasik to a graspable erech hamuskel medimyon hamurgash bebechinas mokim. Go return to the something that you may intellectualize by via imagination from something sensible, which is the idea of a place. Okay, so basically, he's just bringing the Sefer Yetzirah to say that again, spheres, we don't know much about them, but spheres are the initial emanation of of beyond Hashem, the infinite, when he began to create the world. So the first step is he emanated himself into these 10 spheres. Okay, 10 attributes, let's call them.
Okay.
I don't know what they are, and so I can't explain too much. But let's call them 10 attributes. That he created these 10 attributes, emanating himself into these 10 attributes, and they are the first layer of creation via which he will then run the world. Right. So the 10 spheres are like attributes of Hashem. So we'd say one sphere is Chesed. So we say that one sphere is Chochmah, one sphere is Bina, one sphere is Das, one sphere is Chesed, right? These are attributes of Hashem via which he's now going to run the world, right? So even those spheres, right, they're blima, they're without substance. So if you're going to try to understand how the unity and the infinity, the oneness of Hashem, can be contained by these spheres, you won't be able to. So therefore, the instruction here is: so if you're running, if your mind begins to race beyond where you can handle it, shuv lamokim, return to the place, meaning return to. That's why Hashem created, and it's the Ramban. He says, look at the Ramban and Mishnah Zu, the breakdown over here a little bit from the Ramban, is that Hashem created the world in such a way that you can get a glimpse of things that are incomprehensible through appreciating things that are physical and comprehensible. You won't be able to fully understand it. So Mokum is just one example, according to the Ramban, of this thing. But everything that exists so we can appreciate, oh, this is a moshel, this is a parable for this, right? We can understand that, again, like
a simplified translation into our terms or our languages of the concepts that are known to us.
Right, like he was saying, again, we can understand that the Mokum is a place, that if you put your book down in a place, and if there's no place, it will fall and it will break, right? And therefore we can understand, hey, from there we can understand the world is just like that. That if Hashem is the Mokum of the world, Hashem, if there would be no Mokum, the world would cease to exist. So that's, again, that we can comprehend a physical idea, and then we can extrapolate from that to some degree a spiritual idea, an abstract idea. So to a lot of things are like that. So therefore, the Mishnah is telling us, this Mishnah in Sefer Yetzirah is telling us that if your mind goes beyond kind of humanly possible things, go back to sensible things, and extrapolate to some degree how it exists in the spiritual sense, but know that you will never fully understand it, right? And that's what the Rotzei V'Shoiv, your Rotzei V'Shoiv, the Chachayos, they go back and forth. You get an idea of what it's like. If you go too far, come back to the sensible, go back again, get a glimpse of the spiritual, come back again to the physical, and so Rotzei V'Shoiv, you're oscillating back and forth between very abstract concept, which you can't really understand, to sensible concept, which you can understand. Okay, good. Now let's see the Haggadah. So the first Haggadah tells us from a pasuk, again, I'm not sure if I understand this fully, but v'derech drash nuchal lehamis b'psukei in Iyov. So using these concepts, we can understand the psukim in Iyov in the way of derech drash. The pasuk says, "V'achokma me'ayin timotze," and the wisdom, from where can it be found? V'achokma me'ayin timotze. Where can the chokma be found? So he says, what is the pasuk can be translated in a different way. That the pasuk is telling me, "Sha'achokma hagadoylo al kol chokma." You know what the greatest wisdom of all wisdoms, hamuseges meitoyis baruch, that can be grasped from Hashem, hu hachokma niflo, is the great wisdom, sheme'ayin timotze kol rega mitzios, is the wisdom of understanding how everything comes into being every second. That's the greatest. When it says hachochma me'ayin timotze, that the wisdom from where can it be found, or you can translate hachochma. What's the chochma? Me'ayin timotze. How everything comes from ayin. How everything comes from nothing. That's the greatest chochma. The greatest chochma is figuring out how everything is willed into existence from nothing. Okay? That's a different way to translate those words. Then the pasuk continues, ve'eze mokem bina, and what's the place of understanding, right? Ve'eze mokem bina. So, right, again, literal translation is, where can chachma be found? What's the place for understanding? Hainu she'ein b'mitzius eze seichel, shenucha lechanos she'aseichel ahu hu mokem muchsher. There is really no in existence any seichel. There isn't really true seichel that can really be the mokim that will understand this idea fully. Ve'eza mokim bina is saying, and what's the place for understanding? Meaning, the greatest chokhmah is to know how everything comes from nothing, right? And how, meaning not that it does, but how it does. And what's the place for this understanding? There is no place for the understanding, right? That's the greatest chokhmah, and there is really no place for this understanding. That's what this pasuk is saying. V'hu yodas mekoymai, and only Hashem, and the pasuk concludes, v'hu yodas mekoymai. Only Hashem knows its place, his place, her place, its place, meaning the place of this understanding of how everything emanates from him. Okay, fine. Next taga. Gam him shilu yizborach b'bechinas mokum. There's another reason why they compared him to the idea of place. Shekamoisha mokum al yodim iskayim akli. Just like via the place, the kli has existence. Even though it's not really comparable to the vessel. Now you could have one place, let's say this table, and on this table there is the sefer, there is my cell phone, there are my glasses. There's a bunch of things that are sitting on this place. Does that change the nature of this table? The answer is no. The table is still the same table as it was before. So the idea... So what he's saying now, there's another element that's being presented with this idea of mokum, that Hashem is referred to as mokum, that these things that are lying in this place, or sitting in this place, they do not cause any change in the place itself. And the table, or the place, equally supports all of them equally at the same time. So too, Hashem is the supporter, is the place for all of the worlds. Even though, again, there's no real comparison to the things that are lying on the table and the table itself, so too there's no real comparison to Hashem and the worlds that he supports. The Av Keser Elyon, even this greatest sphere, which is called Keser, which is called the crown, Uchma Ihu Legabe de Ein Sof, it's black in comparison to the infinite himself. Now, even though we constantly see changes within the creation, and we see layers upon layers of hierarchy of creation, and we see also forces of Tuma, and all of their different layers as well. But all of them are being supported are from his oneness, right? There is absolutely no change whatsoever in him. The he himself is not changed, and he just provides the place for their existence. So therefore, again, this comes to the central idea that he's going to talk about, is that the word mokum is telling us that Hashem can support this myriad of these things, of this existence, with all its varieties and all the cornucopia of things that are found, but as far as he's concerned, there's no shinui whatsoever in him that's taking place. Again, that's more complicated. Again, it's easy to understand on a table when you can have a bunch of things sitting on a table and you understand the table is not changed as a result, but it's more complicated to understand actually in Hashem, because when we're saying that each of those things that exists, he willed into existence and he kind of provides their existence for them. So therefore it's hard to imagine how is it possible that Hashem experiences, again, there's no change, even though he's the one out of whom these things are being brought into existence. So how is he not how is he not going through the change? Okay. All right, one more paragraph. Ve'im kedover ze ein b'shum seichel lahasig. Right, and even though there is no seichel to understand this, mahu peli, how that it's a wonder. Lezehim litzu chazal. That's why Chazal said on the pasuk of when Hashem, he brought this pasuk before, when Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, right? Hashem says, "I'm going to show you my essence, but you can only see it from my back, right? You can't see me from the front." But he says before, "Hinei makoim iti," there is place with me, there is place by me, and I will put you on the rock, and I will pass by you, and you'll right. That's the whole story over there. So Hinei makoim iti. So the way that the Chazal translate this pasuk is asroit feilali. My place is secondary. It's tofel. It's I don't know, subservient to me. Perush sheleis machshava tfisa eich ubechinas mokom bli shinui. The really machshava cannot fully understand how he is the mokom. He is the place, but without any change. Right? Who is Baruch Levadoi Hamasig Atzmusa? Only he can understand his own essence. Masig, so he can understand how he supports all of these, the Kulu Almin, all of these worlds, Blishina, without any change in him. Okay, Ki'inyan, and that's again going back to that pasuk in Eov, V'hu Yoda es Mekoima. And only he knows its place. He knows the place, meaning he knows the true meaning of what it means to be the place. Bezehu iti, that's why he says the word with me. Ke'inyan libo lepumo loigalia. This is something like right? So we have, again, it's complicated, but right in Parshas Noach, Hashem says v'isatzev el liboy, and he was sad in his heart. Again, we don't know what it means. He was sad in his heart, but there is something that and Chazal on that pasuk says libo lipumo loigalia, that there are some things that are in the heart of Hashem, meaning, and to his mouth he did not reveal, meaning not everything, and not everything is is Hashem doesn't give us all the cards, so to speak. Not all. It doesn't reveal all the cards. Libo lipumo loigalia, something that is in his kind of, he holds something hidden from us. Right? So that's what I said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Hinei makoim iti, but there is a place with me, meaning I will let you into that place that's with me. Right? So Moshe Rabbeinu is going to explain this at the end of Shar Gimel, that Moshe Rabbeinu did have a certain glimpse of things that other people were not privy to. Right? But that's the makoim iti, that this place, there's this place with me. In other words, if you come really into my domain, you'll be able to see how I am this place for all of these things without Shina. Okay? So, all right, let's just do a little more. Valzuk hakavona dorchus rabbeinu zal hakadoshim. So via this intention is how our holy rabbis made a pathway. Laham shel mishalim, to use these parables, be'inyan his chabruso is baruch lo'elomes, when speaking about Hashem's connection, his chabruso, his connection to the worlds. Even though there is really no true comparison between the parable v'animshul and what the parable is referring to. Only in some aspect of it. Even there, only to a degree. Okay, so we're going to probably stop here. And so what we get out of this is I'm not sure. I mean, it's a lot of this we already covered before. I guess he mentions a lot of this before, right? But this is like a foundation of what he's gonna try to speak out. And I'm again just jumping ahead. He's gonna try to talk about, if we're davening for Hashem's chesed, right? Mm-hmm. So are we davening to the infinite Hashem? Are we davening to a certain aspect of Hashem chesed? Like, how do you reconcile these things, right? So that's going to be, because and again, he's going to have this line here. He's going to have this line here in the next chapter. He says, "Ube'emes ha'isi meinei atzmi miledaber b'inyan ze klal." And in truth, I was holding myself back from speaking on this altogether. Ki harishonim zal histiru ha'inyan me'od. Because the Rishonim, he says, they hid this, all these ideas completely. Okay, and right. Aval shavti v'reisi, but then I returned and I saw that was the appropriate approach in their generations. Aval ata, but right now in our generation we're in a different situation. So I need to speak it out. That's why again I'm thinking he felt that something in the world at the time, the certain ideologies were not fitting into this, or making mistakes in this what he felt were mistakes in this framework.
He wants to.
So he's going to verbalize it, right? So it goes to the concept of the idea of something, is an idea called tzimtzum, right? Tzimtzum, that Hashem, again, constructed himself. Again, how does that mean? How does it? These things have no meaning, right? But even though they have no meaning, they do have practical implications for us, as he's going to talk about. So that's where we are that's where we are headed. All right.